the black community's understanding of marriage is broken. That's another reason why I encourage women to kind of show up as a wife, because a lot of men are not going to trust that you are going to figure out or you're going to do extras, once you're married. If you are picking a guy who is not walking in husband energy, then you're setting yourself up for the very trauma, that you're talking about. It's only a few things you need to that most women need to look for, and this is the thing that most of them don't look for. The very first thing, kind of as we were saying earlier about chemistry, the first thing is that's what the devil knows. He knows that if I can take these two people and I get them off track, I'm not just getting them off track. I'm literally, over the next 1,000 years, getting 1 million people off track. There's a part of me, honestly, because of the divorce, that wants to say maybe I should have lined up with my mom. But from a spiritual perspective, no, you were supposed to line up with your wife. There are 3 non-negotiables that, men are looking for. The very first one is...
Wow. That last one was a sermon. I know you say you're a teacher, but that last one is so good. Hi, wives and hi, future wives. This is Abigail, Proverbs 31 University. We want to empower Black women to follow God. We want you to be wives, and we also want you to prioritize proper imaging. Like, comment, and subscribe. I have something special for you guys today. My very first interview / just asking questions on this channel. I'm so excited. This man of God, he reached out to me. I saw his videos and I was thinking I would love to collaborate with him. Let's get together. What do you say? And he literally ended up reaching out to me. And so I think what we do is similar. We want Black people to be married, be healthy in their relationships, and to know God. So we're on that similar path, and I am just so excited. Before I introduce him, I want to remind you guys of the free wife mindset guide. A wife is not just a woman married under the law. She is a mindset. You have to think like a wife to be a wife. And so the link is below. Also, my ebook, Marriage is for Black Women Too. That is also in the description box below as well. Both are very quick reads, and I think you will enjoy them. Now, without further ado, I'm going to introduce Mr. Jay Stovall. His channel is called Hi. His channel is called Christian Dating for Marriage. So Jay Stovall, Christian Dating for Marriage, and he also has a meetup group that's pretty successful. It's called Christian Singles Connect. So without further ado, here he is. Thank you so much for coming to my channel, Jay.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. I mean, I think your channel is absolutely awesome. I love what you're doing, because it is about, just as you said, making wives, getting women, Black women to line up with wives, and they can get married. That's the whole thing. Black women can get married, and we just really want to kind of change that narrative so that a lot of Black women understand that marriage is definitely for them.
I know that's right. So I want to talk to you because a lot on your channel, basically, like I said, you want Black people to be married. You talk about trending topics. You talk about relationships. You talk about it from a biblical perspective as well. And you have this successful group, Christian Singles Connect. And so, first of all, can you just let us know about who you are, why you're passionate about this subject and your channel?
Well, basically my background, I kind of got thrown into the world of singles. That's kind of how I see it. My church did not have a singles ministry, and I found that a lot of churches don't have singles ministries.
Interesting.
And I think the main reason why is because they're really worried about, the bad sheep within, those areas. And so I'm that type of person that I'm just like, I'm just going to put it out here. If God wants it to grow, then he'll make it grow. If not, I'll stop. And that was basically my prayer.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
And so God basically put me in a situation where, 9 people showed up for the very first meeting, and we have done nothing but grow ever since. And being in that environment, it just taught me a lot about the singles, because at first we had nothing but women, I'll be honest. And then over time we had more men. And as the men started to show up, I started to hear and understand their point of view. And the way we work in Christian Singles Connect is we do a lot of open forums where we can actually hear and talk to both sides. And so by doing so, our goal is really to understand the problems that plague, Christian singles that stop them from getting married. Because like your channel, we're 100%, about marriage. So, God kind of led me out, here to the YouTube spaces. And so I've been out here really pushing it, for about, maybe about 9 or 10 months or so. And so, like I say, my goals is, almost exactly in line with yours. I think the only difference is I do talk to both men and women on my channel, but I do have more men that come out, than women. But, I definitely want to see, a lot of, really just Christian marriages, period. But I do lean just a tad bit more towards black women and black men because I believe that there's a lot of misconceptions that are going on in our society that's kind of stopping, both from getting together.
That's really good. That was a very good overview. And I think what you're doing is great. It's great work. And so I'm excited to talk to you. Since this channel is to help black women get married and have that mindset for marriage, among other things, let's talk about what you believe men are looking for when it comes to a wife.
What's the 411, hon?
So when it comes to finding a wife, choosing a wife, what are men looking for? And then when it comes to actually being married and in the marriage, what are they continuing to look for? Because I believe sometimes when we get married, we think, okay, I've reached the finish line, that's it. But you want to also divorce proof your marriage. You want to also make sure that you're still pushing towards that mark, and you're not just lazy now that you're married. So kind of go into what you believe men are looking for, maybe specifically Christian men, since that's your thing, when it comes to a wife. And then when they are married, what are they looking for a wife in that marriage as well?
Okay, well, that's a lot. But I'll do my best.
We could go with the first one. We could go with the first one.
I'll do my best. I definitely will just start with the basics. Like, I talk a lot on my channel. There are 3 non-negotiables that, men are looking for. The very first one is kindness. It is very important that a woman be kind. And a lot of women kind of take this for granted. And being kind doesn't just mean being kind to your man. It means being kind to everyone. All right. And that is something men are looking for. I think women are looking for it as well. People always use the waiter waitress test, where they're always like, is the person mean to the waiter or waitress? So that's kindness. The next thing a lot of men are looking for, especially men that are about their business, is that they're looking for a woman that is supportive. A woman that is supportive of the business, not trying to change his business, not trying to say that he is going down the wrong path, but literally saying, how can I help him in the business that God, has sent him down, right? The road that he's, going down. And the final one is beauty. Men are very much into an attractive woman, but I'm always encouraging women that every man does see beauty differently. And I truly believe, and I know a lot of people, kind of think I'm just pandering, but it's not. I actually believe every woman is attractive, but I just believe that you are attractive to certain people. Right? And everybody has a tribe of people that like them. All right. And so I always try to encourage women that, that don't get upset about skin color or weight or this, that, and the third. Just do your best, every single day to be the best that you want yourself to be. And that is going to definitely open it up. So those are the 3 non-negotiables that I believe that a lot of men, have. Now, once you get beyond that, we have this nice little split in the world, which is the women who are girlfriends and they're walking in what I call girlfriend energy. And then there are women that are walking in wife energy. And I know that's a lot of what you talk about on your channel, which is trying to prepare women to be wives. And that's exactly what these women need. So praise God for your channel. Praise Him. So when you are like, one of the things that I always encourage, because I could say, I don't know everything about being a woman, evidently. But one thing I do know and I understand is that a husband, and this is something for the ladies to look for as well, the husband energy and the wife energy has one thing in common, and that is ownership. So when a woman has wife energy and she starts to date a man, as they lead towards courting, she's actually going in with ownership. So now at this point, she's not trying to spend all his money. She's not trying to come into his house and leave it a mess. She's not trying to, look around and if there's dishes to be washed or oil to be changed in the car. I don't know. Like I said, we live in a brand new world. But
Right.
if there's things to be done, the woman is saying, I don't mind doing them.
I volunteer as tribute.
Mm-hmm.
That is a wife.
Mm-hmm.
But a girlfriend says, I ain't doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to do nothing. I'm just here chilling. Or, this money, I'll spend it on me. Let's go on vacation. Buy me clothes, buy me shoes. A wife is saying, I'm thinking about this money for the future. How are we going to build our house? How are we going to prepare for the kids? So a woman comes in, there's a wife, has more of an ownership of the man.
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing, husbands. A man that is walking in husband energy comes in ownership. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of women, they'll start to know whether or not a man is a good guy if he comes in owning, things. If he is changing, the tail light in her car, is he changing out the tires in her car? If he sees that she needs some shoes, does he go to get them? So those are the types of things. And of course, for the Christians, he's going to want the woman to be Christian. Like I know for me, if I'm introduced to, a woman and she says, hey, I'm not Christian, it's a wrap. We're not going any further, right there. So, and I always tell people, like, you can't be a Christian if you don't know, but like only Kirk Franklin sings Christian songs. So if I'm like, what's your favorite Christian song? And you're like, well, Kirk Franklin, back in the day, he had this jam. Okay, no, you're not Christian, boo. Okay, you're not Christian. You got to know a little bit of the word. You need to be trying to go to church. You need to be trying to do something. So I think, that is the core of what I think most Christian men are looking for. I think it's going to vary from man to man because, we all have certain things that we like to do. Like some people like to vacation. Some people like to, go on walks / hiking. Some people will really love movies. See, all these things are going to be different man to man. But I think at the core, they're going to want those three things. They're going to want Christianity, and they're going to want a woman who is prepared to be a wife.
That's really good. I wanted to just go. I was writing down some things, and I wanted to go back to the three non-negotiables. I love how I guess I'm not gonna lie. I didn't think you were gonna say kindness in any point of this. I didn't think that was going to come up at all. And I think a lot of the women that are listening probably were thinking physical beauty was going to be first, and it is in there, but it wasn't what you led with. Without your, which is what I thought was interesting. Sometimes we forget that kindness is so important to someone, because who wants to be with someone that is always angry, that is always mean, that is always saying something, a snide remark, or always has drama with someone, or is bringing drama to them? Nobody wants that. And that is a part of being a solid woman or human being. I would just say in general, one of the fruits of the spirit is kindness. So as a Christian, kindness is a fruit of the spirit. And if we are not operating in kindness as believers, that is an issue. And we really got to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, am I really doing what I need to do to be growing in Christ? And so I love that you said kindness, because there's so many femininity channels out now and so many women talking about masculine versus feminine energy and all of that stuff. But I think it's innate in women specifically to be kind, to be soft, to be like that, to be sweet. And unfortunately, when it comes to Black women, a lot of people don't see Black women as kind, soft, sweet. They may see us as super boisterous. They may see us as, Black women just have attitudes. They always upset about something. They always, talking like this or talking out the side of their neck or whatever. And I've heard some people call Black women very masculine. And as if, masculinity doesn't mean being kind. Of course, men are supposed to be kind as well. But I think a lot of times when we think of Black women, or when people think of Black women, they're not thinking of a kind woman, a sweet woman, a nice woman. And sometimes too, because of so much feminism, I think a lot of women think being kind is being a doormat, or being kind is being weak, when it's none of the above. It's just decency. It's just being decent. It's just being a decent person. it's being kind, saying thank you when someone has done something for you. Or like you said, when you realize something needs to be done, it's kind to reach out and see how they're doing and see how can I help. So kindness is something that we all should be desiring. And I think women are more, we're more empathetic biologically anyway. So for a lot of women to try to fight against that and saying, kindness or being kind. Oh, I don't want to, I've been kind before and got hurt, or I don't want to, my kindness to lead to me being, a pushover or whatever. I think it's been so perverted. And maybe there's just women that have experienced a lot of hardships, but I love that you said kindness, because that's why these femininity channels are blowing up. That's why so many women are desiring to tap into that, because just be kind, just be nice, just say thank you, just see where you're needed, just see where you can help. And that is what a wife is. A wife is a helpmate, right? That's what God said. And how are you going to help if you're not kind? Kindness and helping, serving, all of that is together. So I love how you led with that. I love how you led with being supportive. That should be a given as well. Just like kindness, being supportive, helping or your husband's dreams, figuring out, telling him he can do it, encouraging him, not bad mouthing him, not, saying whatever idea or whatever it is he wants to do is like, oh, I don't want to hear that. No, you can't do it. We can't do that right now. Just always negative. Nobody wants that, because you wouldn't want it if your husband was always shooting down your ideas or shooting down your desires or your goals or your dreams. You wouldn't want that. So we need to do the same thing. We need to be supportive of our husbands. And I always say this is just like when the topic of submission comes along, a lot of women don't want to talk about it because I just don't believe they completely understand it. Especially, and it's always surprising to me that Christian women, some of them have a problem with submission. It's just like, we're supposed to submit to God. So if you have a problem with submission when it comes to marriage, and you can't even fathom doing that, I can guarantee if you are a Christian, you're probably having a hard time with your relationship with God.
Period. What?
Because submission to God, and it's the same thing. It's the same thing. God wants you to submit to his ways, right? And when it comes to being a wife, there are just some things that the Lord wants you to submit to when it comes to your husband. All things, really. Unless he's doing something that's sinful. Outside of that God wants you to submit to him, and it shouldn't even be a problem. And if you don't feel like what he's saying is good, you don't necessarily have to say anything about it. You can just say, okay, and then pray about it and let it happen. And let's see where it happens. And if it fails, well, we're not going to say, I told you so. We're not going to say you shouldn't have did it like I told you not to do it. We're just going to say, that's all right. We'll find something else to do. I'm right here with you. Because, a lot of women say their husbands or their men are not opening up to them or aren't leaders. But how about maybe anytime he's tried to be that, you've shot it down, or you've tried to say, that's not going to work. That you're complaining all the time. So I love the support. And of course, lastly, the beauty. I think that's a given as well. And I love what you said, that, all women are beautiful and it's just who they are beautiful to. I've always told my husband this: there is somebody for everybody. I truly believe that there is somebody for everyone. If you want to be married, there is someone for you. For example, I see the oddest couples all the time. There's TV shows about a woman who's like super tall and the man is like really, really short, like comes to her waist or something. They're together. There are so many different kinds of couples out there, and so they found a way to make it work. So I think if we also let go of crazy expectations, I think we'll be able to find those people much quicker. And so another thing you said was wife energy. Now you said ownership. Now, when you were talking about ownership, can you explain that a little bit more? When you're talking about ownership, a wife has ownership, a girlfriend doesn't. How are you speaking when you're saying ownership?
Make it plain.
I mean, I'm literally, speaking from the perspective of, the way I do everything is like the 90-day rule, right? So I don't look at it for a sex thing, which is what, a lot of people would use it before in the past. I use it more as, this is the time to understand whether or not you want to take, this budding relationship and turn it into a real relationship. So the dating process to me is approximately 90 days. And then once you get beyond that 90 days, if you're actually doing things properly, you should actually be moving into courting. All right. So, and it's not exactly 90, it might be 60, it might be 120. So that I kind of have to build first. Now, once that's been built, the concept here is when a woman meets a man and that man starts to take her into his environment and she starts to take him into her environment, there should be ownership by the person coming into the environment of the environment. So to give you an example, like by the time, like I say, generally maybe a couple of weeks in, if I'm dating a young lady and then I bring her over, to my place. Well, the first time she's there, she's a 100% a guest. Maybe the second time she's there, she's a guest. But by the time she's the third time she's there, okay, you family now. So at that point, I don't feel like I should have to get up and fix you a drink. I don't feel like I should have to clean up after you when you leave. I feel like you should look at my place as your place. It should almost be an extension. So if you're living in an apartment, if you're living in a house, wherever it is, that woman, when she comes into my place, it should be an extension of her place. And she should look at it the exact same way. So if she would tear up her apartment or whatever, then she's welcome to tear up my apartment. But if not, she needs to be coming in. And like, for instance, I always keep it cold, in my environment because I get hot. So I have a lot of throw blankets everywhere. I mean, literally all these throw blankets. So if a woman comes in, she's going to be wrapped up in a throw blanket. I mean, I can just guarantee it because I generally keep it around 71 degrees. And so what happens is when she leaves, if she just throws the throw blanket, back on the couch, you're not taking ownership. You're not cleaning up after yourself. If I, have dishes that need to be washed and I have a meeting, so somebody calls me into a meeting and she just happens to be here, when somebody calls me into a meeting and then I come back out and she's just scrolling on social media, bored for an hour and she could have washed the dishes, then that's a problem. It's the same thing. Is she cooking? Is she doing all these things? I'm a pretty busy guy, right? And I'm not saying she has to wash dishes. I'm not saying she has to do anything domestic. That's why I was saying, even if she changes the oil, in the car. But the concept here is that if she can do something for me to better my life, and not just better it, but to better it in a way in which I am going to be a better person. Like I said, I'm a busy guy. So if she comes in and she's like, you know what, you're not eating right. I don't feel like you're eating right. Every time I come over, you got fast food in, the refrigerator. So at that point, if she says, you know what, I'm going to fix you 3 meals on Sunday and I'm going to bring them over to you. And then you can just eat on those throughout the week. At that point, she's taking ownership because she's basically saying my health is a concern to her. See, if she's a girlfriend, she don't care about my health. I could fall out and die the next day. But if I'm a potential husband, if I'm this potential husband, she's going to be very concerned about how I'm eating because how I'm eating affects how my brain works. It affects my mobility. It affects whether or not I catch certain diseases, blah, blah, blah. So a wife comes in with the mindset that I'm going to start taking care of this guy, in whichever way that looks like. So it does, and I always tell people, it doesn't start on day one. And I don't expect the woman to come in and on day 30 be washing the dishes, doing this, whatever. No. It's a process. It's just a little bit, every other time. So by the time I get to that 90-day mark, I'm starting to see who she truly is and what type of responsibilities, that she will be, for me. And I always tell women the same thing should be happening with the man as far as a husband. So like I was in a situation where I was dating this woman and literally her taillight was out. So I was like, okay. I was like, well, I'm about to take, because she was looking at me crazy because I told her, like, give me your keys. And she's like looking at me crazy. I'm like, I'm about to go over here to AutoZone, buy a light and fix this taillight. You're not going to be driving around without a taillight. And, she's kind of looking at me crazy, but she did it. And she was kind of, had that good, gushy feeling about it once it was over, because what did she see? She saw a man that is basically trying to take care of her. So I'm leaning into what it would be like to actually be that true husband, because I have to be concerned about her. I have to be concerned about cops pulling her over, people being able to understand if the car is stopping, all these types of things. So I'm taking ownership of her. But boyfriends don't take ownership. They don't care what happens to the woman.
That's true.
And so that's a huge difference between guys that are actually serious about a woman and men that aren't. But I find that both sides kind of do the same thing.
That's good. Now, my next question would be, because I can hear it. I can hear it. I don't know if you hear it, but I can hear it. The next question that I would have, that I feel like a lot of women would say on these social media streets or these streets, is, I'm not doing wifely tasks if I'm just a girlfriend. If we're just dating, I'm not gonna do anything that is that a wife would do. I'm not gonna clean up, do your laundry. I'm not gonna do all of that because I'm just a girlfriend right now. You haven't made it official. You haven't put a ring on my finger. There's no engagement. There's nothing like that. So if you want me to take care of you, if you want me to do all those things, then I need to be married first. Now, I know what my response would be to that, but tell me what your response would be to a lot of women that say, I'm not going to, do all of that stuff if I'm not officially married to you, if I'm not a wife. That is stuff that a wife does, and I'm not going to do that as a girlfriend. What would you say to women that maybe have that thought process, that are thinking that maybe they have that thought process because maybe they did some of those things and they still didn't get married and it didn't work out? Maybe they just feel like I'm just not serving a man, or I'm not doing nothing unless I know for a fact that we're getting married or we're married. What do you think about that thought process?
Well, the very first thing I would say is that you have to look at the stuff before we get to the question, and you kind of led into that, and that deals with first trauma, trauma from past relationships, which really has nothing to do with the current relationship, and then you also have to look at, it's about the person that you're picking. And I know a lot of women really don't like that. A lot of men do not like that. I talk about that a lot on my channel, but a lot of people's problems really comes down to the person that they're picking, right? So if you are picking a guy who is not walking in husband energy, then you're setting yourself up for the very trauma, that you're talking about, right? So a lot of women in the past, they picked bad men. And they've continued to pick bad men, and then they want bad men to one day act like good men. But bad men don't act like good men. That's how they work. And when we see people like the whole situation with Sierra and Russell Wilson in Future, we kind of know how this works. See, Sierra was dating Future, and she recognized, she had an epiphany. She was like, oh crap, these Pookie and Ray Ray dudes ain't never gonna do right by me. They're always gonna treat me like dirt. So she went to what some women call a lame guy, i.e. Russell Wilson. But Russell Wilson is the type of man that was trained to be a husband. He wasn't trained to be a boyfriend. Okay? And so now Sierra is saying, I am willing to take a chance and go after a better man. Right? So that's, like I said, that's the background of all of this. Because at the end of the day, all of us, I think, have to look in the mirror and say that a lot of our life is based off of our choices. Okay? And it's sad, but, let's be real. If a man, I'll say it from a man's perspective, because a lot of women would look at it like this. If I am chasing the Instagram model and I finally get one that wants to date me, and then you see me on a TikTok and I'm like, woe is me. I was out here, I was dating a TikTok model. I spent $50,000 on her. I bought her all this stuff. I took her around the world. I did all these things. But, she left me, and she was cheating the whole time with this other guy. Woe is me, woe is me. These girls and lawyer, baby paint games. A lot of women would be laughing at the dude. Well, you shouldn't have dated her and all this other kind. You should have known better. Well, that's how a lot of men feel. because there's really great men generally around every woman, but there's a choice that's being made when a lot of women choose bad men. Now, I understand it more in high school and college time and technical school, but as women get closer and closer to 30, the concept of picking bad men starts to kind of go out the door at that point, because you know better, at 30. So that being said, do you think you can go up if you had nothing but Hyundais your whole life, Hyundais, Kias, Toyotas, all right, and every single time you had a really crappy loan, on that car, and then now you decide, okay, I'm gonna buy a Mercedes Benz, right? So you decide you're gonna have a Mercedes Benz. So you walk up and you're talking to the salesman of the Mercedes Benz, and you're like, well, I want to do this little half and half loan type of thing from this unreputable company, in order to get over on this. And what's going to happen is the Mercedes Benz dealer is going to be like, I'm sorry, ma'am, we only do high level loans here, or you can pay cash. Well, all these loans in the past, they didn't hurt me, and all these cars. Ma'am, I'm sorry that those things hurt you, but we're Mercedes Benz. So in order to be in a Mercedes Benz, you have to do what we say. And see, there's a point there where I think a lot of women don't get that. When you're with the husband energy man, and he knows he's the husband energy man, you can't come to him any kind of way. You have to come to him as a wife. And even though you might have gone through some pain, that has nothing to do with him.
That's
because
true.
it wasn't caused by him. And it's hard for people. It truly is hard for people, because I'll be honest, it's hard for men to do that. You see a lot of men, like I say, out here upset that women have taken their money, that they think all women are gold diggers and this, that, and the third. But it's the same thing. You don't go to a woman who's walking in wife energy and treat her like a girlfriend. I can't come to her, and no man can come to her talking all this pain. Well, women ain't about nothing. Women ain't blah, blah, blah. They always doing this. They always doing that.
Women are so overrated.
You can't come to them like that. So I understand where a lot of women's pain has come from, and I get it, and I do feel bad for them, but I have to let them know that if you pick the right man, he will reciprocate. He will give you what you're looking for. And so a lot of women, they have to try again, but the difference this time is to focus in on the man's character. And that's one thing I don't think we talk about enough in the Black community, because a lot of Black women really I don't think they truly understand how to pick a man based off of his character versus how he looks and his energy. And just to be honest with you, because I talk about, like I said, I don't know how you work on your channel, so I don't want to go too in depth, but there has to be more than just chemistry.
Yes, I agree. I actually did an episode about that, and there was this dating coach, and she was talking about, there was this research that was done. They followed couples on, I guess, couples that went on their first dates or whatever, and the couples that had the most chemistry, they went on dates, and they said, when they interviewed them, how was the date? Oh, the date was great. We had so much in common. We had so much chemistry. The butterflies, the sparks flew, all of that stuff, right? Those couples they would get married, but years down the line, they would end up getting a divorce. And there would be couples that weren't really feeling each other that much on the first date. It was like, it was okay. It was okay. Not a bad person, but just okay. I didn't feel the spark. I didn't feel the chemistry. Those couples would end up getting married, and years later, they would actually still be married, and their recollection of the first date, where they said it was just okay, it was meh, it was just all right. Those couples saw that date differently. They would say, "Oh, we had so much chemistry. We just had so much chemistry. We loved each other. We already knew this was the one." And so I've done a few videos, and I've said, we have to stop with the feelings. The little feelings are fleeting. Feelings are fleeting. And when you know why you're dating, when you know that you're dating for marriage, it's important to properly vet, and not focus so much on what this person can do for me when it comes to this guy is flashy, so I'm sure he can provide well, or this guy came in a Mercedes Benz, as you mentioned before about a Mercedes, like this guy, took me to a nice restaurant, so I like him. We're letting surface level things determine our lives, because we're allowing ourselves to connect with people who are just, they look good on the surface, or we had chemistry. How do you know you had chemistry though? What if that chemistry was just you being manipulated by the fact that he seemed flashy? Sometimes we have to understand that our emotions don't always tell us the truth. And so giving that guy a chance that maybe you didn't feel like it was that great of a date, or it was okay, but you didn't feel those sparks, maybe go out with him again and see how it is. And he may have the character, like you said, of a husband. And we have to understand, we need to understand how to vet men and women. And hey, I'm not just looking for someone that has a nice butt. Okay, for the men. I'm not just looking for someone that has a nice butt. Because you know what? Me looking for women that have a nice butt has led me down child support lines, okay? Or has led me down in the wrong direction, right? We're learning, we're growing. At this point, you might have a nice butt, but I need to know what's in here. I need to know what your life is like. I need to know more about that. And sometimes that only comes with experience, being with a few bad apples. But also, I think a lot of people can avoid that when they look at content like your channel or my channel, or they really dive into, how to vet someone and how important character is. Because I do think, because of, Black people and, poverty in our communities, a lot of times we're just attracted sometimes to what seems flashy, what is surface level, what is, that person has a nice body, or that person has a nice car, or that person has a nice house. Meanwhile, you have no clue about their character. As you said, they are not husbands. They are not wives. They just want what you can offer them on the surface level, but they don't want you to correct them. They don't want you to go deeper. They don't want that intimacy in a deeper way, right? That comes with marriage. They just want what they see on the outside. And so I think you're right. We need to teach, and we can start with teaching children. It's important. The character is important. The character, even MLK said that, the content of their character, not the race, but the character. So if we just think about that, it's nice to be impressed with the flashy things, but let's think about who this person are. And that only happens with us getting to know them, dating them. And like you said, and my response to the women that would say, well, I'm not doing girlfriend things, then what are you going to do? What are you doing? And how is this person getting to know you? Because you can say a lot of stuff, but actions speak louder than words. I think there are many ways that you can show that you are a wife by, I always say, how can you add value to somebody's life? How can you add value? A Proverbs 31 woman, if you look at that whole chapter, she was adding value to her family. She was adding value to her children, to her husband. It says that her husband trusts her. She adds value. So how can you add value to a man's life? How can he look at you and say, that is a wife, that is valuable, that is what I need in my life? And you just said it, by serving, by being selfless, by doing things, by showing me with your actions. And I don't think it always has to be, picking up behind someone or whatever. It could just be being supportive and coming to an event that I'm a part of, or, being supportive and telling me nice words and saying, you can do it. I know you can do it. There are many ways that a woman can inspire and influence and, support a man. And so I think you're right. A girlfriend is just thinking about herself. And a wife is thinking about them, because it's two become one once you're in marriage. And so he is you, you are him, and you guys are one. And like you said, if you're eating correctly and if you're healthy and if, that's great for you as well, because you're married to them, right? So I love that. It's just thinking about, how can I help this person? How can I serve? And again, being a wife is being a helper too. When a man is married, what would you say a man is looking for when it comes to being married? Is it the same thing? Like when he's dating, he's looking for a wife that has these qualities. Now, when that man has gotten married, what do you think, maybe from your experience or what you've heard from other married men, what do you think a man is continuing to look for from his wife?
So really, I think when it comes to, what men are looking for within the marriage, like fully within the marriage, I'll be honest, and it's kind of like that age-old saying, where it says that, women want the man to change and the man doesn't want anything to change. And I do believe that that is a part of it. I think a lot of men, by the time they've picked the woman, to marry, they're pretty much happy with what they have. I think that's why men are very particular about, getting to that point of getting down on one knee. But, once they've done that, and I think that's another reason why I encourage women to kind of show up as a wife, because a lot of men are not going to trust that you are going to figure out or you're going to do extras, once you're married. You know what I'm saying? A lot of men are not going to do that. And I think that could be tricky in a lot of different subjects, maybe not, so much that we need to talk about on this channel. But I do believe that, that is one of those issues. So the only thing that I think both sides, definitely need to do is to keep the excitement alive. Keep what you guys were doing before and don't stop doing that. And that's marriage advice. My background, I did a lot of wedding photography and different things like that. And that was actually some of the advice that I've actually heard over and over again at weddings is that, the couple always has to remember to keep, their relationship strong. And they're going to have to do things, whether it's take trips together, whether it's going out to eat. Some women, like I said, not all, because there's some men that do this too. But since we're talking to women, they might want to let themselves go a little bit. You can't really let yourself go because you are his woman forever now.
I'll do the best I can with what I got.
Oh!
And so, he's going to want you to look good, and he needs to look good too. That's why I say I don't think it's just on the woman or whatever, but I just think that, both sides need to really make sure of what they're doing. And I know one of the things, I know this is slightly different than what you asked, but one of the things that I know I want to implement, because I was married before, I'm divorced, but one of the things that I know I want to implement, and I'm kind of starting to encourage people to implement this if you think this will work for you, because everybody's different. But in the master, bathroom, because I don't want the world to see this, but in the master bathroom, one of the things that I had wanted to do was to actually have a rating, a 5-star rating, and maybe 3 little, whiteboard points, that go to that rating. And so that will allow my, future wife to go in every month. It's something I would like for her to do every month, or maybe we could do it once a quarter, depending upon what she feels comfortable with, and give me a rating. Give me 5 stars, 4 stars, 3 stars, and then basically tell me in those 3 whiteboard spaces what she would like or what's going on where I'm not getting my 5-star. So if it's more dates, more walks, communicate more, I would much rather have that information early so that I can fix it versus when I'm all emotional. We've been going, married for 10, 15 years. Things are pretty much going to quote unquote hell in a handbasket. And then now I'm trying to figure out, okay, what I did wrong. And I do feel like there's a lot of people, not just women, but people that kind of take what they're really having a problem with and then they keep shelving it. And then what happens is we think, oh, that's not a big deal. But what I've learned, especially from my first marriage, is that builds kind of like a tidal wave. And you think that you're staying in front of it, but sooner or later it's going to crash. If you don't start to get rid of some of the pieces, it's going to crash. And when it crashes, the problem is it's so much emotion that hits you. And that emotion can last literally years. And see, that's where a lot of resentment comes up with, I think, a lot of men and women. And that's one of the reasons why I'm always telling people you cannot give the devil an inch. Because as soon as you give him an inch, he's going to take 1,000 miles. So you have to fix it almost as soon as it comes up. And you can't say, well, we got to worry about the kids. We got to worry about no. The husband and wife come first. It's God, and then it's your person. So if you're the wife, it's your husband. If you're the husband, it's your wife. So after God is your person. Your kids ain't even in the picture. And a lot of people want to put their kids over their spouse. No, your kids are never over your spouse. If you're doing it that way, you're actually setting yourself up for a recipe of failure. At least that's one of the things that I believe. So
Mm-hmm.
I believe that a lot of men that are locked in with God, they're going to want to make sure that they find ways to secure the future of their marriage.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That is so good. I love that. First of all, I love that you are speaking to both what both men and women can do. And I also love that you are putting your perspective in this as someone who has been married and not married anymore, because I think sometimes people think, well, I'm divorced, I don't have anything to really say on marriage. But actually you do, because I'm sure you have learned a lot of things that you could have changed, that your significant other could have changed. You can look at it and evaluate it and say, you know what? I want this to be different so that when I do this the next time, it will last a lifetime this time. And so I love that you're giving that perspective from someone that was in it, and you're saying, this is what I would want the next time going. I don't want all this. Let's not sugarcoat it. Let's not put it to rest or bed, or just put it on the shelf. Let's talk about it now. And I love that you said something like, that's such a cool idea, a point system. How am I doing? How can I fix this? What is my rating? I love that, because you're willing to hear that. You're willing to hear that constructive criticism, and you're willing to get something done and fix it. And I love that. I think that's such a good idea and a concept. I think a lot of couples need check-ins. A lot of couples need to check in, because life can get busy. At first, it's about you two, and then you start a new job that might be hectic, or you start having children, and a lot of things change throughout the years, and you're adding more and adding more. And sometimes you can focus on everything else but you two in your marriage. And another thing that you said that I love was, it's not the children over the marriage. It's not the children over the marriage. It's the marriage first. And I think a lot of people would have a better time possibly parenting their children if their marriage was solid. Sometimes I think some people take out all their frustrations and their anger, or they put everything into their children because there's something actually missing in the marriage. And instead of dealing with that and fixing that and, talking about it, they're just like, you know what, I'm going to just focus on these kids, put my all into these kids, or whatever the case. So it's so important to remember that God put the family together first. But before there was children, before Cain and Abel, before Seth, there was Adam and Eve. There was Adam and Eve. And so if we can remember that it's our marriage first, that's what's important. There was a viral video that was going around, and they were asking men, who would you say first, or something like that, your wife or your mom? Who's more important, your wife and your mom?
Who comes first, your mom, your daughter, or your wife?
And of course, some people said their mom, and then some people said their wife, and all that stuff.
One of the things that I'm always encouraging people and having them to remember is, even when you start to do things from a biblical perspective, because, we're talking about kingdom marriage, primarily. And when you start to even think that way, you have to remember we have an enemy. And like I said, I think a lot of people don't really give a lot of credence to that. And I'll be honest, I didn't. In my first marriage, I just thought that was just garbage and all this other kind of stuff. And no, there is an enemy, and that enemy is literally out here, and he's looking for little things where he can actually create division, right? And a marriage will fall apart if you put the children first, and you will actually hurt the children if you put the children first. Most children do not have a problem with being second. They have no problem with that at all. Children get joy watching their parents in love. They truly do. And when there's problems with the parents, it always shows up in the children. It always shows up. People have done all these studies and all this other kind of stuff, and it always shows up. And so that's why people have to understand. And I get it. Like I said, in the black community, because, we talk a lot, both me and you talk a lot, to the black community. And the bottom line is the black community's understanding of marriage is broken. And I get it. But, that's why I think you're out here. God has you out here. He has me out here. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to stand in the gap, so to speak. And then I'm always encouraging everybody out there, to stand in the gap, because you have to stand in the gap for your future generations. People don't
Right.
understand how powerful that is. If you can go 2 generations with people even decently happily married, they don't even have to be perfectly happily married, just decent. They just get along. Give it 30 years. Even if you can't make it 50, just give it 30 years. If you can do that, the impact on your children and your children's children and on down the line is magnified. And see, that's what the devil knows. He knows that if I can take these 2 people and I get them off track, I'm not just getting them off track. I'm literally, over the next 1,000 years, getting 1,000,000 people off track. But if these 2 stay together, then now in 1,000 years, 1,000,000 people will stay together. And 1,000,000 people will be following God. And 1,000,000 people will be doing what God wants them to do. And so it's real. That's what's at stake.
Yeah.
And see, people don't think like that. But it always shows up when you can tell. In fact, I just went to my class reunion. And one of my friends, was talking to me. And it was really interesting listening to his perspective, over these years versus my perspective. And he was just talking about all the things that he thinks he missed out on, all the things that did not go his way. And I was telling him, I was like, dude, we all lifing out here. We all making mistakes. Life hits all of us. But, he was just, letting me know, like I say, from his perspective.
Right.
But one of the things that I've learned and I noticed, almost everybody that I knew that came from 2-parent households, like over 90% of them are married today. Which means more than likely their children will be married. And not only that, almost all of them that are in that two-person scenario, so they're married, been married all these years, they actually have more money. They have more money, they live in bigger houses. Their kids are a lot more calm, stable. They don't have a lot of emotional issues. They're doing better in school. They're doing better in sports. It's like everything blows up in this really great and wonderful way when we just align. But the problem is, I think, like I said, with the Black community, is that so many of us come from single parent backgrounds. And I'm not beating up, like I said, on the people that come from single parent backgrounds. Okay, my mom came from a single parent background. However, it's not necessarily about your past, it's about your future. And it's about what are you willing to go in and understand. And the very first thing that people have to understand, especially for single moms, is that the husband comes first. And even if a single mom is saying, hey, I'm going to marry this guy, and it's very difficult to do, for a lot of women, they have to lock in on their new husband over their children. They have been there for the last 12, 15, 2, 3, however many years. And now you're trying to lock on to what seems like a stranger. And that's very difficult to do. But I remember in my marriage, I had to make a lot of decisions based off of my mom and my ex-wife. And there's a part of me, honestly, because of the divorce, that wants to say, maybe I should have lined up with my mom. But from a spiritual perspective, okay, the Holy Spirit has always kind of given me peace and let me know, no, you were supposed to line up with your wife. Your wife comes first over any other person on this earth. All right? And even though it didn't work, and even though I could come up with every single excuse, at the end of the day, whoever my new wife is, she will come first. She will come first over any other human. Now she don't come over God. If God say we're going to do X, Y, Z, we just going to do it. But I think that that's so important because a lot of Black people, especially those from single moms and even single dads, they don't really understand that. And they've never truly seen 2 people try to work it out. And you have to understand that that's something that's missing, in your understanding of relationship. And if you want to be married and you want to be married forever, you have to be willing to stand in that gap. And then you also got to realize that we have media, we have literally the devil and what he's doing in our society, where he is trying to encourage both men and women to go down really bad paths. And a lot, like I said, I mean, it's kind of funny to me because, it's like I said before, like I said, because I know we're talking to women, you have a lot of women that will be right next to what could be their husband, but they bypass him.
We're not engaged. We're not even dating, and we never will be. But I thought you. What I like is for you to leave me alone.
And the thing that I'm always encouraging women is mainly two basic things about finding your husband. Because you got all these, like we were saying, we talked about on my channel, where we talk about all these prophets and all these things. Because like me and you are teachers, right? So we're teachers, we're not preachers. But we're also not prophets, because you have the prophets. And a lot of the prophets sell hope out here on YouTube. And they will tell women, oh, your husband's coming, all this kind of stuff. Well, my goal is to teach women how to know if this is your husband, but not through hope, but through, a little bit more reality. So you definitely have to get that 100% okay by the Holy Spirit. So I'm not going to say that that's not going to be there, because that's the whole Christian piece. But once you get beyond that, it's only a few things you need to that most women need to look for, and this is the thing that most of them don't look for. The very first thing, kind of as we were saying earlier about chemistry, the first thing is, are you decently attracted to the guy? So when you look at the man, is he decently attractive? Now, I ain't saying perfect. I ain't saying no 10 out of 10. But is he a 6.5 out of 10? Is he a 7 out of 10? Can you look at him and squint a little bit and be like, well, maybe if he grow his beard out a little bit, maybe if he get his hair right, maybe if I buy him some shirts and some chains, maybe at that point he might look a little bit better. So that's like number one. And then the second thing to me, which is the most important thing, and this one can be a little bit difficult, especially if women never knew their dad. Because you're supposed to get unconditional love from your father. That's one of the main reasons why you want to have your father in your life. And for a lot of women, they've never experienced unconditional love from a man. They've never experienced it. And unfortunately, we have pastors that have actually taken advantage of women. And I have heard stories about pastors, having sex with women, even though they were married, knowing that the girl had daddy issues. And so the girl is trying to reach out to her pastor to get that unconditional love, and then she ends up getting hurt in the process, right? So the thing that I'm always, encouraging women is, like, if you have a man in your life that is giving you unconditional love, okay, whether this is your brother, whether this is your dad, whether this is an uncle, as crazy as it sounds, your husband's energy is going to feel a lot like that. What? It's going to feel a lot like that unconditional love. He is going to want to take care of you. He's going to want to protect you. It's not just him trying to get you in the bedroom. And see, a lot of women understand bedroom energy. They 100% understand it, because that's what they've been had for the last 15 years. Somebody that's quote unquote blowing their back out, right? But that's not real love. And marriage love, unfortunately for a lot of women, is going to partially feel like, oh my gosh, you act like my brother. Oh my gosh, you act like my dad. Like my ex-wife used to say that all the time. She's like, oh crap, you act like my daddy. And like even my sister, when she got married, even though we both come from a two-parent household, she used to say that about her husband. She's still married, but she'd be like, man, referring to her husband, you act just like my brother and my daddy put together.
What?
You're not my dad!
And so here she is, my sister is basically saying that her husband acts like us. I'm saying that, my wife was saying that I act like her dad. That is saying that you're on the right track. But unfortunately, a lot of women, don't know their dad, so then it has to go to a brother. But your brother still has to be a good guy. He has to be the guy that gets married, not the guy that's got like 5 baby mamas. So it's looking for that unconditional love, that love that even if you got chopped in half and he couldn't get to your private areas anymore, he would still stay with you.
Wow. That last one was a sermon. I know you say you're a teacher, but that last one was it is the totality of Jesus Christ, that unconditional love, where it says his love is unfailing. That's the type of love. And unfortunately, I agree with you. A lot of Black women specifically have not experienced that love because so many of us have been fatherless, unfortunately. And so we have to rewire our brains to accept that type of love, to know we're worthy of that type of love, and then also to know that type of love exists and find it, not run from it. Because sometimes there is a good man that will give you that, but some women have been so broken, they will run from that. They will chase that man away because they're used to what is toxic. They're used to what isn't loving, what's lustful, or what feels good in the moment, or what they're used to, what's familiar. But it's a bad familiar, not a good familiar, like you were saying, like a good father or a good brother, someone that is actually integral and decent, but they're used to what is familiar that is bad. So I absolutely love that. That was very touching too, because I think a lot of women wouldn't even expect a man to say that. There's so many different spaces online, and they tell you what a man is looking for, but not really tapping into that unconditional love part. And I think that's the difference between a Christian man and a man that is not Christian, a man that is of the world. That man that is of the world may not be generous in that way of that unconditional love. And so I love that you pointed that out. I, again, did not expect you to say unconditional love, but I think it's so true. And we have to get to know that. And one way we can know that, even if we've never had a father, even if you're a Black woman, say, I didn't have a father. And if I did have a father, he wasn't there, he wasn't around. Or I don't have any men in my life that showed me unconditional love. Well, Jesus is the way to get that unconditional love. Mm-hmm. And once you press in towards a relationship with him, you will know and understand the type of man that you need to be desiring and praying for and putting yourself out there for and looking for. And also asking God to take away that stuff in you that is attracted to toxic people, to take away that stuff in you that is attracted to dysfunction. Once you understand that that's you, that maybe you have been in so many troubling relationships and all of this stuff. Now, okay, God, I realize I'm the problem. Help me to get rid of these toxic feelings and desires when it comes to men, and help me to start desiring the good guy. Let me not be on my fourth child and in my fifth relationship in 35 when I want a Russell Wilson. Okay, let me want that Russell Wilson before that happens, for those who haven't gone down that path yet, or they're just starting to realize, there's something in me that isn't right. So I absolutely love what you had to say. And we're going to wrap this up. I feel like we can talk so long about a whole bunch of stuff, and hopefully we will be connecting again. Before we wrap up, please, again, first of all, thank you, Jay. And also just let us know your singles group again, and also your any information, your Facebook, not your Facebook, but your YouTube, any information, how people can connect with you, search you out, etc.
Okay, well, again, my meetup group is called Christian Singles Connect. The headquarters is here in Atlanta. We also have a chapter in Charlotte and a chapter in Birmingham. However, anyone is welcome to join our Zoom calls, because we do Zoom calls, every other weekend, because we do believe in education. So that is out there. You might not always see me out there because we have several members that are speakers and different things like that. But we're always about pushing for really great information. If you want to connect with me, you can definitely do it right here on YouTube. My quick handle is JAY2, and then the word connect. So J2 Connect. So pretty much on TikTok, on Instagram, and on YouTube, J2 and connect will help you to find my channel. So that's me.
Awesome. And honestly, this wasn't in the notes, but I do feel led to pray. So let me just pray over you, or just pray really quick. God, thank you for this connection. Thank you for bringing us together. And thank you for this time. I pray that someone was blessed. And I pray, God, that you're just peeling back the layers in those who are discovering themselves again. And I pray that they'll get closer to you. I pray that you'll bless Jay and his channel. Let it continue to grow. Let it be impactful, and bless his family, and let him find that woman that is for him, in Jesus' name. And I thank you for all that you're doing. Amen.
Amen. Yeah, let that woman come on.